Here's more wrestling news for October 11th, 2022, and we're kicking off this afternoon with WWE, and after Daniel Cormier's appearance at last weekend's Extreme Rules, another UFC veteran may be next in line. On Instagram, MMA fighter Nate Diaz shared a photo with WWE's chairwoman and co-CEO Stephanie McMahon and the head of talent relations, Triple H. In the caption, Diaz said, "We'll see what's about to happen next," implying that he could be the next star to jump from the octagon to the squared circle. It was at UFC 279 last month that Diaz announced that he will be leaving the UFC following his win over Tony Ferguson in the 4th round. Between his UFC departure and appearing with the Game and McMahon, it certainly looks like Diaz is WWE bound in what could be a huge signing for Triple H. Last week, Jimmy Smith's time with WWE came to an end when he was cut from the Raw commentary team as part of changes made to the teams at all three brands. Not long after his departure, Smith has had some rather unsavory words for the company, saying the promotion focuses on who looks like they can fight rather than who can fight. Saying WWE is more CM Punk and less Brock Lesnar, Smith gave Roman Reigns as an example, saying the tribal chief can't fight and is just a big muscular dude during a recent podcast. In an update, Smith took to Twitter to explain his comments, saying that his initial comments have been misinterpreted. "I got all these angry messages. I went, what the going on? I googled myself and Roman Reigns, and the first thing that popped off is this Bleacher Report article. It had a quote of mine from my radio show, all chopped up, and essentially me talking about DC as a fighter and Roman Reigns and Brock, and there's no context at all. It completely leaves out I was asked if DC would take on Brock Lesnar in WWE, and I said no, because they don't look like they should be in the same ring." With comments against Roman Reigns, it's unlikely that we'll see Smith back in WWE anytime soon, but now the former Raw commentator is already making waves outside of the company. Last week, AEW confirmed that Jon Moxley has signed a new deal with the company, one that will keep him around for a long time to come. Moxley's new 5-year deal will see him work exclusively for AEW in New Japan, and Moxley wouldn't have it any other way. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer addressed Moxley's new deal and reported that he never considered looking at a return to WWE. "He's not going to WWE. He doesn't want to go to WWE, doesn't want to put on of wanting to go to WWE and play both sides to get more money. He doesn't want people speculating that he's going to WWE. He wants all the speculation over, and he's with AEW for 5 more years. I know at some point he discussed." Moxley isn't joining WWE, but Meltzer did add that the AEW star did consider not signing with AEW and instead being a free agent who'd still appear. Obviously, that didn't happen, and Moxley re-signed for 5 more years in a much-needed big win for Tony Khan. After 4 decades ruling the wrestling world, Vince McMahon's retirement came in July this year due to allegations of misconduct and millions paid out in non-disclosure agreements. In addition to Netflix, Vice have been working on a documentary about the life, rise, and fall of the former WWE CEO, but fans will have to wait longer to check it out. The Vice doc, titled The 9 Lives of Vince McMahon, was scheduled to air on October 18th, but has since been moved, and the spot will be filled with reruns of Tales from the Territories. There's no word on when the doc will be aired, but with the WWE not being involved in the 2-hour doc, we're curious to see what will be discussed about McMahon's incredible life. Last week, Tough Enough Season 6 winner Sara Lee died at the age of 30 and is survived by her husband Weston Blake and their 3 children. Once news of her passing was confirmed by her family, former NXT star Bull Dempsey set up a GoFundMe page hoping to raise some money for Sara's family at this tough time. This page has smashed its initial $20,000 goal and is now over $100,000, and on Facebook, Lee's family were overwhelmed by the support. On behalf of the Weston and Lee family, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for the love that has been shown Corey, Sara, and their beautiful children. Corey has taken a step back from social media, but is blown away by the generosity everyone has shown. Through the darkest times, you guys have been a ray of light. Thank you will never be enough. Notable names from wrestling, including Tony Khan, Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, and Elias have donated, as the wrestling world has come together to help out this family in their time of need. For years, fans have speculated on a match between The Rock and his cousin Roman Reigns, which is rumored to finally be happening at WrestleMania 39. Both men have teased a match in the past in what would be a monumental collision of two of wrestling's biggest ever stars. Speaking in a new interview with Chris Van Vliet, The Rock was asked about Reigns and the Bloodline and whether he acknowledges the head of the table. "Of course I do, that's my family. I think those guys are doing a great job, and I think, what an interesting shift that the company has gone through this year, unexpected in many ways. But when unexpectations happen in that kind of way, form, and fashion, especially in this business, you've got to have the ability and the agility to pivot, which they have. So with Roman, I think he's doing a pretty good job, and the boys too, the Usos as well." Bringing The Rock back would be the arguable highlight of Triple H's run as head of creative and head of talent relations, and with the Brahma Bulls schedule suspiciously empty for the first quarter of 2023, that match looks increasingly more likely. Over to AEW now, which is still without four of the promotion's biggest names, as CM Punk, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks continue to be absent from TV. Tony Khan had hoped that the fight at All Out had been a one-off event, but it was just last week that Andrade picked a fight with Sammy Guevara backstage, in another incident the AEW president wishes didn't happen. On his 83 Weeks podcast, Eric Bischoff was asked about whether there are any comparisons between AEW and WCW and admitted that working with wrestling's biggest names can often be difficult. Bischoff added that WWE isn't immune to this either, as seen with Steve Austin's infamous 2002 walkout, but said that Khan has dug himself in as the end-all be-all of AEW. Khan hasn't delegated responsibility well, according to Bischoff, who believes that a lot of the drama backstage could have been avoided had the AEW president had more people surrounding him. This is hardly the first time Tony Khan's leadership has come under question, and though he has always put himself across as a cool, friendly, one of the boys kind of boss, it certainly feels like at times the inmates are running the asylum. When Kevin Owens and Vince McMahon confronted each other during a 2017 edition of SmackDown, fans could not predict what was going to happen. At this point, a McMahon appearance on TV was very rare, and as if him on SmackDown wasn't surprising enough, Owens would attack the then chairman and leave McMahon bleeding. While speaking on the Oh You Didn't Know podcast, Road Dogg responded to speculation that this was some kind of special effect, saying that Kevin Owens made McMahon bleed the hard way. For one, I'm 95% sure it was a hard way. If it wasn't a hard way, nobody knew but those two. That's the truth because we all pooped our pants when that happened. We knew he was going to headbutt him, and we knew Vince had probably told him, "Don't you hold back." I'm sure. That's his character. His real human character. It was not planned. What we did was shoot the blood, knowing we may be on the masters that went out everywhere else. We could edit that out, or we could also turn the film into black and white if we wanted to use it going forward. It was an on-the-spot decision to shoot that, and again, that's from my vantage point from where I was sitting. The only person that usually sat next to me was Vince, and he was in the ring, so maybe secrets were kept and talked about that I wasn't aware of, but that's my recollection of the night. McMahon was never shy of taking hits in the name of entertainment, and that's exactly what happened with Kevin Owens, who left his then boss a bloodied mess in 2017. In 2019, Erick Rowan was seen in WWE carrying a strange cage covered in a burlap sack, which had everyone guessing on what it could be. Some thought that it could be Rowan's old sheep mask, which he had ditched in the past, but what we got was nowhere near as interesting. After months, the reveal was that Rowan had been carrying a very fake-looking spider that was destroyed by Drew McIntyre, but that wasn't the plan. Sitting down with SE Scoops correspondent Steve Fall, Rowan said that the plan was for this to be a pet rat, with the idea being that it would have been a court-appointed therapy pet after he had previously tried to run over Roman Reigns earlier in the year. Going from one Shield member to another, the plan was for Seth Rollins, then a face, to accidentally kill the rat, starting a feud that would lean heavily into Rowan's lore. Ultimately, that didn't happen, as Rollins would turn heel in late 2019 before the idea could begin, and who knows what could have been had it been a rat, and not a mechanical spider instead. And we're ending with news from Raw, as plenty has been announced for next week's show. WWE announced during last night's show that Elias will be back next week in his first appearance on Raw in months. The last we saw of Elias, he was at the bedside of his brother Ezekiel, who had been attacked by Kevin Owens and powerbombed on the apron. Elias was re-added to WWE's internal roster around the same time that Ezekiel was removed, and next week we'll also see Dexter Lumis finally face The Miz. If Miz wins, then Lumis is gone from WWE again, while a Lumis victory will earn him a contract, and we'll have to see what this new season of Raw brings next week. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.